All right, so we just heard about AI SDR use cases for outbound prospecting, and I am so pleased now to be joined by probably a man who needs no introduction to all of you. Manny Medina is here. He's the founder and CEO of a new AI agent startup, Paid, which is the business engine for AI. And of course, most of you know him as the founder, the longtime CEO of Outreach. So Manny, welcome to the AI SDR Summit.
Thanks, Craig. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I was so psyched actually when we connected and talked about you being here at this program, because I think everybody is really interested in hearing from you. You were the longtime visionary. You were part of a team that created kind of this whole category of pipeline generation through outbound prospecting, or outreach, of course,
Yeah.
as you called it. And maybe as we just kick off, I would just like to get your take on why is outbound such a key motion for businesses? Almost every single business has kind of this outbound motion, but in your experience, what does it take to really get it right?
You know, the reason why outbounding exists is because every business, like every business owner, every business leader has a dream of the kind of customers they want. And they don't have to think it that hard to know who do they want to sell to and what kind of customers do they want to have. The question gets a little harder when you try to scale that, and then you try to create ICPs and like try to look at your customers and try to find more of those. But at the very core, outbounding is the ability for you to, or any leader, to own their own luck and find out who is the customer that they need to have, and then practice their pitch, practice their positioning, practice finding out what the problems are. And outbound, there's no better way to determine, to get quickly to the answer than outbounding. And of course, I'm biased because that's how we built Outreach, right? Like Outreach was originally an outbounding engine. But the reason I was so excited about it is that every time that I got a hold of an individual that I targeted, I was able to learn more. I was able to learn more about my own market, about my ACP, about what resonates to the customers, and form a view of what would it take for anybody to capture the entire market. So I feel like outbounding is the core of sales, and is a core for you, and is a core of marketing as well.
I think you have learned over the course of time, though, kind of the techniques and tactics of kind of doing it right. Obviously, it's not just like load a bunch of emails and start spamming people. There's like a level of personalization. There's sort of an art, a way of doing it, multi-touch, multi-channel. As we think about kind of this outbound space, it's obviously super right for AI agents to come in there and kind of do prospecting with AI. There's a lot of companies doing it, including Outreach has a prospecting agent, and a bunch of new startups are on the scene, lots of kind of incumbents. What do companies need to think about when they're thinking about kind of like performing this workflow or this motion with AI agents? How do you get it right? How do you get it wrong?
Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about this, Craig, and I wanted to start with taking a step back and sharing with this audience of like, why did I fall in love with outbounding? Because it sounds like a weird thing to fall in love with. And the reason I fall in love with outbounding is because you have to figure out a human being before you talk to that person and what matters to that person. You don't outbound to a company. You outbound to a person.
You got it.
And to understand what matters to that person, you need to, first of all, you need to be curious, like genuinely curious about what makes that person tick. And once you're curious, you're not driven by, the reply or the opportunity created or whatever you're selling. You're curious about like what matters to them. So you will go and do your research, and you will hypothesize, and you will create sort of like lists of hypotheses, and then try them to sort of like peer into this black box who is the human being in front of you. So for AI to do that, it needs to evolve from, just making workflow smarter and faster to this really, this, to imbue the AI and the agent with this level of curiosity, to give him all the powers out there. Like if you think about, when you ask OpenAI to go do some research, it does a very thorough body of work in trying to find out, all the bits and pieces around this topic. It's the same thing with a human being. Now, it's more expensive and it's a lot slower, than sending a bunch of emails that personalize. In my mind, personalization is not a great way to find somebody. Like, you don't care that I reach out to you and be like, hey, Craig, I saw that you were the former CEO of Salesforce. Would you like to talk to me about marketing? Like, no, everybody, like that's not real work. The real work is the fact that, you may be interested in new technologies to bring in into Qualify. You may be interested in, something for, that is particular to you. And that part hasn't really been cracked. And that's what I'm excited about, the future of the space and not the past.
Okay. Yeah. Great perspective. I think the value proposition is just so compelling, especially when you're talking about, outbound. There's teams of 20, 30, 50. I was just talking to a company last week that had 200 outbound SDRs. And obviously when you sum up their salaries and the fully loaded costs of those individuals, CFOs and go-to-market leaders are looking to be more efficient, but they're also looking for pipeline generation to grow at the same time. So let me zoom out a little bit. Let's
transition with consistency too. Like, I mean, that's the thing that you don't get with a human being. Like with an ACA, you get consistency of pipeline generation, at least in the written form. But what you don't get is that extra connection that you do when you get on the phone. But sorry, I interrupted you.
So no worries. It sounds like your perspective is that as far as the written kind of communication goes, you're going to get a level of scale and personalization and probably connection that you might not, you might not get with even a large team of humans, but there's some aspects of the job are still going to require that human touch, like you just mentioned, the voice style, for example.
Yep, 100%.
Well, let's transition a little bit and talk about kind of the broader go-to-market organization, because kind of you've not only created outreach, you've seen the entire landscape evolve. You're heavily involved in go-to-market, even with your new company, Paid. When will go-to-market be entirely agentic? Like, how's not just the world of SDRs, but how's this whole thing playing out in the go-to-market?
It reminds me a lot of the question that we ask ourselves when we started outreach, right? Like, the birth of the SDR function, and then eventually of the different forms of outbounding and SDRing was really what drove a lot of the tailwinds that made outreach be outreach. But we always ask ourselves, like, what else looks like outreach? Like, what else has deterministic workflows that have a beginning and have an end? And for us, that was customer success, actually. Customer success has a time where it starts when you want to engage the customer in order to drive either awareness or a transaction. And it ends at the point of the renewal, and then it begins again when you need to re-engage for AVRs or whatever. And that hasn't been cracked, which is surprising to me, because a renewal motion looks very much like an SDR motion. And I don't see enough attention to that part of the problem. And the same thing with customer marketing. Like, there is, the job of the customer marketing is fairly deterministic. And I don't see enough attention being paid to the post-sale success awareness of the customer. So for instance, what is the biggest pain that most software companies have? Is that your customers buy you for product A and you get them all implemented, but they don't know you for product B, C, and D. So when they go up and to look for product B, D, and C, they don't even consider you sometimes because they don't even know that you have that product. So that awareness needs to happen, and AI is prime for that. So to me, it's a no-brainer that AI is going to permeate the entirety of the lifecycle management of a customer. It's just there's just not enough people out there doing it. So maybe this is something that Qualify can go solve.
You got it. I mean, I think the light bulb just went on for a lot of people who are attending this program right now, that in the world of customer success, you're basically always prospecting
100%
to your customers, right?
Like, you have to stay top of mind for anybody. Like, you lose mind of, like, who did you talk to last and what happened next and all that. But an agent is perfect for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about pricing, Manny. The title of this session is Putting a Price on Digital Labor. And I wanted to get your perspective, because this is the hot topic right now. How do I price my solution? How should I expect to buy it for those people who are kind of like in market to buy an AI SDR solution? And they're hearing words like it's token-based, it's credit-based, it's tiered pricing, it's activities. I'm going to charge you based on the number of conversations I had, or the number of emails that were sent, or the number of dials that were made. And then some people are talking about work performed and outcome-based. Hey, I'm going to charge you based on the meetings booked or the pipe generated. It's like all over the map right now, right? So, what are you seeing as a leader in our industry? With respect to you're the founder and CEO of a new startup, Paid, which is actually focusing on helping companies kind of price and monetize AI agents.
Right.
So I wanted to pick your brain on this. Like, what emerging models are you seeing with respect to agent pricing, and how would you advise buyers when they're thinking about these different pricing models?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And we and at Pay we play the field. So we talk to every, AI SDR company and support agent company. So if you are an agentic company, Paid is custom built for you. It has the business engine with the monetization vehicles and is a billing and invoicing platform to make sure that you're both pricing towards what the work that the agent is doing, but also making sure that you have good margins. So fundamentally, we're seeing four models dominate the market right now. So you either price per agent, which is the ability for you to say, look, an agent is like a human being, maybe 30% less or 40% less than that. And you price, somewhere south of that, fixed fee per year, and then you're done. The other way is to charge per activity. And, we see a lot of that, which is sort of like a step up from tokens, right? So the agent does something, you charge for it. Each of these models have pros and cons, right? The pricing per agent allows you to redirect the spend from being a software spend to go into the headcount spend. And when you go into the headcount spend, you're not talking anymore to, the CRO. You maybe talking to the CFO, and you're trading headcount for software. And that's a great place to be because a headcount budget is bottomless. You see what I mean? The software budget is always a percentage of revenue, but the headcount budget is a lot bigger. Um,
I
there
was just
the
talking to a company, Manny, that has $12 million of SDR spend. And so, of course, the CFO is looking at that budget and going like, whoa, if we could save half of that, you mean like that would be insane. And so I think that buyers are thinking about these pricing models, and they're trying to figure out like, what is it going to cost me? Like, for example, in my experience, we sell to CMOs, and they're very skittish on some of these pricing models because they go, what am I going to be paying you a year from now? I
right.
can't quantify how many conversations or how many emails your SDR is going to send. So I don't want to pay like $2 per conversation. I kind of want a fixed price, and then I can reevaluate a year from now. But the value prop is like so compelling that I think vendors like the ones that you mentioned that you're working with are trying to figure out, how do I price to maximize kind of uh, the contract value? And then buyers are like, well, that makes sense because I know I'm not paying per seat for this thing, right? They know the seat-based pricing model is going away, but they're fearful of like the unlimited spend on metrics they don't understand.
Yeah, 100%. This is why I don't like the consumption model because, as a marketer or as a sales leader, like you don't put food on the table based on consumption. You put it on the table based on outcomes. So now outcomes are sometimes hard to determine. So there are sometimes intermediate outcomes such as workflows. So for instance, sending an email, getting an email reply, or booking a meeting, those may be intermediate outcomes that they have a price. They tend to have a price. So like the cost of a lead, a lot of people know the cost of a lead. And the cost of a qualified lead, a lot of people know the cost of a qualified lead. So if you can get, the closer you can get to some kind of like opportunity stage 0 or 1, then you're starting to look more like, a true human being that gets paid for performance.
Right.
And then outcome based is not here yet, but it's getting there. Like there's a lot more people who are open to doing that. And to control for variability of spend, you can create buckets. So there's nothing wrong for saying, look, I'm going to sell you a bucket of like, 50 qualified meetings for the next 6 months. And that's a known quantity that you can pay for, and you can judge that against the alternative. And then you can take that to the bank all day long, right? And as a vendor, you'll be happy to say, look, buy 50, and if I deliver 65, then pay me for 65 on the next contract. Just keep the contract short. You see what I mean? But the idea is that, we have to explore the edges of the alignment to get really aligned, because this is the sin for the majority of the AI SDR companies, is that if they charge for something that is very easily replaced, like per agent or per activity, then somebody else can come along and say, I do the same but cheaper. And that is not a great place to be, especially when we're both agreeing that AI SDRs need to do more research, which means that the cost per token goes up. So margins get compressed. So to do really good work, you need to stay in the flow of outcomes and less of the flow of activities.
I'm 100% aligned with you. I haven't met a CRO or a CMO that wants to talk about tokens. I think they want to talk about meetings booked and pipeline generated, because that's how they get measured, of course.
100%. Nobody knows what the hell is a token. Not even the OpenAI can tell you what a token is, because it could be a word, it could be a half a word, it could be, a comma. Who knows? You know what I mean? So why are you paying for that? It's an absurd outcome. It's an absurd metric.
Well, where do you think this is all going, Manny? in my experience over the last year of bringing AI SDR agents to market for inbound, it's been very clear to me that that every company wants to stick their toe in the water, but they all want to have their own crawl, walk, run with AI SDR agents and AI agents in general. They all want to crawl, walk, run. So how should companies be thinking about pricing? There's massive potential for cost savings.
Mm.
There's massive potential for value creation, but every company wants to crawl, walk, and run here in 2025. How do vendors and how do buyers think about pricing when we have the same end goal, we know where we want to go, but we kind of have to phase it out?
Yeah. I think that the what I love about where we are right now is that every board has a mandate to the CEO and the executive staff to go become agentic, right? To go figure out how to imbue AI across the entirety of the organization. And when you read, some like the memo from Toby at Shopify, like people get even more excited, right? Like we need to go do that, right? Like it needs to be compulsory. Don't talk to me unless you're trying AI. So it's great. Like this is actually creating a lot of momentum and a lot of hunger. So as a vendor into this river, what I suggest everybody is that first of all, try to get into a POC of some sort, and make it long enough so that it's meaningful outcomes. You see what I mean? Like make it, good 12 months, charge something that, covers your cost, but allows the other company to have a fixed rate for the trial. And then use that to align to the value outcomes that you really want to charge for. So don't just like sell the POC and move on. Like, no, sell the POC and then find out the alignment. And then once comes renewal time, then figure out what the right pricing should be. And don't get sucked into this, like, oh, I need the same price for everybody, because that's stupid. If you're selling enterprise, of course you're going to do custom pricing per customer. So just figure out like what matters to your customer and then align to that price. That's my recommendation. And I see a lot of success when companies do that.
And I think it's really important in this new world to learn about the vendor that you're working with. And it could be multiple vendors in this kind of pilot phase, because everybody's all over the map, really. We have a lot of companies that have been around for a decade or more who are coming out with AI agents. And then we have brand new startups that just appeared and got seed funded in the last 2 months, that are making wild claims too. So it's all about like, which vendor can you trust to go on this journey and guide you to the future? But Manny, let's wrap up. I wanted to ask you one final question about the venture that you just started. I mean, you've got an incredible past and you've been a leader in our industry for so long, but you just started Paid, and you've marketed that as the business engine for agents. And you talk about monetizing agents. Why have you been so excited about this new opportunity? And to kind of tell everybody who's on the program today what Paid is all about and how it can help them be more successful in this agentic world.
Yeah, so Paid came out of the insight as we were building agents at Outreach that if you look at the world, 5-10 years from now, a lot of the work is going to be done autonomously by AI. And when the work is done autonomously by AI, there's no seats, there's no consumption. What it is how do you price the work that a digital worker is doing? And how do you price the value that they're delivering? How do you measure that and show that to your customer? And at the same time, how do you navigate this morass of confusion around, what model to use and what cost it will drive for you and your organization? So we decided to take a first principles approach and create the entirety of the business engine. So instead of having to buy, a billing application and then have to buy a finance application and having to buy an accounts receivable application, how about I just give you the entire platform in one sitting where you can just run your agentic business. So if you're building agents and you're selling agents, this is a place to be, because we were built for you from the ground up, thinking about agents and undoing all the mistakes of the past of the SaaS built applications. That's how you think about it. And I'm very excited because everyone is building agents. I think every company will become an agentic company at some point. And I'm just starting with the ones that are natively agentic now. And at some point I'll catch the ones that will turn into agents in the future.
Yeah, the whole go-to-market there's a whole new agentic layer being built on the go-to-market. And that's why we're here today at the AI SDR Summit. I'm so thankful that you're here with us today, Manny Medina. Everybody, appreciate your perspective on AI SDRs. Thanks so much, Manny. Have a great day.